My photography portfolio website used to be an immense source of stress in my life. Oh, I constantly thought about it, constantly worried about it. And looking back now, I realized that I was making at least 5 big mistakes. And once I fixed those, it went from being one of the most stressful things in my business to now it's one of my favorite things to do and favorite things to update. So here are 5 mistakes that I made on my website and that so many people are doing. You should stop doing them right now. This video is not sponsored by Wix. I actually tried to get them to sponsor it because I love Wix, but they did not respond to me. The first mistake that I made on my photography portfolio website was that I showed everything. I showed all of the types of photos that I had ever taken. I had sports and lifestyle and wedding photography and family photos and dogs. It was a mess. And I think maybe I was in denial that I was a wedding photographer and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a wedding photographer. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I had no idea what I wanted to be apparently because I did so many different things on my website. I had like a portfolio page, and then like under that portfolio page, I had like bajillion categories, and it was ridiculous. And it was a huge problem because when you go to someone's website, if there's 15 things that they do, what do they do? Right? It made people confused. They weren't exactly sure about what kind of photography I did best and what kind of photographer I was because I tried to be everything. You know what kind of restaurants are not the most, renowned, famous, and incredibly busy restaurants? Buffets. While I'm not going to slam on buffets because, who doesn't like a good buffet? They're not what you think of as really dynamic, incredible businesses that are memorable and you just want to recommend to all of your friends to go to. It's not that type of business. Because they do everything, they typically, I'm not like an expert on buffets, but they don't typically do anything super well. They kind of do everything fine, edible, Think of your favorite restaurants. Think of your favorite business. They typically do one thing, and they do one thing really well. So I finally came to a point where I was like, all right, I'm going to be a wedding photographer, or at least this is going to be my wedding photography website. And if I want to do other things, I can set up a different website, a different business to do something else. This is so hard. I know it's so hard because it took me years to actually just commit, but commit to one thing. Get rid of everything else that's on your website. The second thing I did was I tried to be nifty. Now, I went to school for graphic design, and so when I started my wedding business, I was like, oh, I'm gonna show everybody how good of a designer I can be. And I'm gonna do all these cool different things that are crazy. And you're not gonna really know how to navigate on the website because it's so different. And then I realized that was a super bad idea. Yes, you wanna stand out, but you want your website to be usable. You want it to be intuitive. And I feel like I worked so hard against myself trying to show off my web skills and show off my creativity that I forgot at the end of the day, it needs to be clear and usable, and people need to be able to navigate your website. So make it simple, make it intuitive. The third thing is that I used templates. Now, before some of you get up in arms here about my bashing of templates, I love template websites. Squarespace. Now, it's an incredible way to get a website up and going. And especially when I was putting up my first website 11 plus years ago, web design had come so far. Like it used to be where like you needed someone to code something out. They needed to know CSS and all the different thingies to get a website together. But then came companies like Squarespace, like Wix, where you could put something, you could use a template and you could just like put in your photos and you could have a website up in like 20 minutes. It's incredible. The only problem with that is that all of a sudden, all the websites start to become very similar looking. And that's what happened with me. I'd used templates for years, I'd used Squarespace for years, and on it was a huge help to me. But then came the point where I wanted to stand out a little bit. Like I wanted to have a simple, intuitive site, but I wanted it to look different than just all the other Squarespace templates. And I couldn't, I wanted to be more creative, but then with the template, like I couldn't do what I wanted to do with it. And so that takes me to this company who is not sponsoring today's video, Wix. I moved from Squarespace to Wix a few years ago, and it gave me everything I wanted. Like they have templates so that you don't have to do something from scratch and just like feel totally overwhelmed. But the thing that I love about Wix is that they give you the ability to do things. Like you can push things around, you can blow up your whole template if you want to, and just do something from scratch if you want. And that gave me the creative control to express my brand in the specific way that I wanted to without having to know coding stuff and advanced web design thingies. Of course, Wix is not perfect. It has some struggles. Sometimes it's a little slow and it's a little hard to use and it has some glitches. But for the most part, it's incredible at getting, I don't know, 90% of what I completely dream of in a website. It helps me do that all on my own. Like, of course, it's not going to be better than having, a web designer put together exactly what you want in the exact way. Of course, there's some limitations here and there, but if you're looking for kind of a step beyond the presets, you should definitely check out a platform like Wix. The fourth thing is that I didn't spend that much time thinking about the philosophy of my website. The great thing about these website platforms is that you can sign up and that you can have a full website by the afternoon or by the next day. And that's great. However, I realized that I didn't spend the time that I needed to think about the strategy and the philosophy of my website. What was I going to put out there? What was the brand? What was the story that I was trying to tell? And I think it's really easy just to follow the like drag a picture here and fill in this text box and this text box, that I didn't spend the time thinking like, where do I want my visitor to go? What is their journey through my website going to be like? And how can I set my website up in a way that I put them on a specific journey through my website and I don't just kind of blindly follow a template? And this is something that you can do today. Like sit down, look at your website and get a big piece of paper and like write down like, what is my customer's journey on my website? What do I need them to learn about me? Like if you desperately need them to know some backstory about you, like, maybe make sure that's in a prominent place so that they will definitely come across it and definitely read it. And it's not in like a navigation bar under a submenu that you hope that they eventually get there. Take some time to think about your brand's message and the best way of setting up your website in a way that you can convey that message clearly, that they have a path to follow. And this ties into the fifth and final and the most important part. If you just listen to one thing, listen to this piece, this point, and that is, get ready. You need to buckle yourself into your seat, because at least if I heard this years ago, I would have fallen over. And it's this. Your photography site, your wedding photography site, whatever kind of photography site you have, guess what? It's not about photography. Like, it is. Your photos should be on there. But it's about a brand. It's about telling a story. For so many years, I completely got this wrong. I thought that people just needed to see my photos. And if they just saw, the amazing photos that I photographed that they would be like, that's my guy. I need him to photograph my wedding. But I would say photos are half of the story, maybe even less than half of the importance of a photography portfolio website. Stop putting all of your focus on your photos and focus on your brand. Like, I had never even really thought about my brand for years. And then I learned, and I did a bunch of reading and studying, and I got a consultant as well. And I learned some really valuable lessons that, that your brand as a photographer is just as important, if not more important, than the photos that are on there. Of course, you need to take the best photos, but the thing about the brand is that that is your way to explain your philosophy and how you shoot and why your photos are so good and why they should hire you instead of Joe Schmo down the street. Photos just tell half the story. You need words, you need a story, you need to bring your audience into your world so that they can understand what you do and they can understand why it's worth the cost, why they should have you there on their wedding day, for example. So thanks again to Wix for not sponsoring this video. I did apply for their referral program or something so that you could get a discount if you wanted to sign up for it, but I haven't heard back from that yet. But if I do hear back from them, I will put a link in the description below so you can support the channel. If there's no link, I am sorry, but you could look at my shop and you could support the channel that way, and at the same time, get some incredible things like presets for your own business.